Are you tired of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh? Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.
This is very, very good. What a cool sound. I love the beat and I love the voice. Really, really cool. We have London After Midnight. And this is Better Off Dead. Be my guest. It's the song, and we have the songwriter and the artist behind this wonderful music. We have Sean Brennan. Hi Sean, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. We're really happy to have you. Thank you for making the time. It's truly appreciated.
Sure.
This is great sounding.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I can think a bunch of excellent references. Other bands, very big bands that reminds me of, but it's also special. It's also very different and unique.
No, thanks.
So, London After Midnight, why don't you tell us a little bit about this project, introduce yourself and your music, please.
Right. My name is Sean Brennan. I formed London After Midnight in the early 1990s in Los Angeles. Basically, as a live band, I tried to start the band as I started it actually as the guitar player because I didn't sing. I played guitar, and I kind of planned to just have a group of guys who all contributed equally and wrote and that kind of thing. But we could never find a singer, and after years, of looking for various members, I gradually had to kind of take more responsibility over certain roles, so it kind of became my project, really. And no one else wrote music, so I had to write all the music, and no one else sang, so I had to sing. So it kind of became really just my thing, my project, and I've got a live band now, though. Who are just incredible, musicians, and I do have sometimes I don't play drums. I program drums, but I don't play them very well. So my live drummer will play on recordings where I need live drums and that kind of thing. So I may have guest musicians on sometimes on recordings, but yeah, primarily that's kind of how it goes as far as the actually putting together the albums and that kind of thing. But I write everything on my own and that kind of thing.
Wow, that's an amazing story. From the mid-90s, so you've seen the industry really, really change and evolve. What's your comment? What's your comment on that?
No, it's really bizarre. I mean, because we, when the band started, it was the dream was always to get on a label so you can kind of, sustain yourself and make money, and you would kind of expect it to tour. Playing live is really not something that I like to do particularly. I prefer I'm an artist. I paint and sculpt and do I like the act of creation more than going around and showing my creation off, I guess, So, and that applies to music too. But it was always kind of a given that playing live was something that had to go along with music. But so I in the beginning, that's what you thought of, and then it finally happened, and I got on some labels, and it was like, everything was working out very well. And then kind of, downloading just started happening kind of just maybe a couple years after that, and, file sharing kind of thing, and it just absolutely destroyed the music industry. So that had a massive impact, and then it's gotten a little better now, but it's still not at all what it used to be. What it used to be like, or at least the glimpse I saw of the short time that I was able to sign to a label, and they would take care of a lot of the stuff that needed to be taken care of, and I could just concentrate on music, and I would get paid, although it wasn't great. Labels don't ever pay you very well. So so now I've ended all my deals with labels, because all they want to do really is sign you and have exclusive rights to your music and your digital rights too. And when they're not, and really the only thing I need a label for is distributing physical product. And they only will do that for a few months, because of downloading has kind of destroyed all the independent music stores too. So there's not much they can do after like a 6-month period for you, but they still want to retain rights to your digital sales. And so I said, I don't want to deal with any labels. I'll form my own label, and that's what I've done. In 2019, I started my own record label, and I'm distributing my music myself. That way I don't have to deal with labels who aren't doing anything but just taking my money, It's hard enough as it is now to earn an income doing music. So
100%. It is hard enough as it is. And as you were saying, maybe it had some benefits. What do you underline as the main benefits from your experience while you were working with labels?
Yeah, well, the main thing, like I said, getting physical, they really just got physical product out, but they also did, promotion and all that kind of, all the stuff that I don't like, to do, or that I don't know how to do, or don't have the resources to do. So that was kind of a good thing. But I did kind of get a feel of how things work a little bit. It got really kind of annoying too. Like in just before, it was probably like 2000. I was on an independent label in Germany. It's kind of a larger independent label, and we were and the guy who ran the label was kind of also forming a management company, and he was shopping us to a larger label, which is at the time was like BMG Gun, which was a big label. They like signed that band him and a lot of other kind of larger bands. So that label wanted to sign London After Midnight, and he was acting as our kind of manager, the guy who ran our independent label there. And but it's just, as the further up you go, the less control you have. And like the label wanted as a condition for me to redo one of my first songs that appeared on my first album that I actually recorded in 1991 and released in Germany in like 1995. But they wanted me to make it new metal sounding, and for one thing, I hate new metal music, but another thing but another thing, I I had a bunch of new music, and I didn't want to go back, into my repertoire to just, record an old song and put it out. But they thought it was going to be like a big, massive hit, kind of along the lines of Him or something, the band that they were kind of pushing at the time. And but the whole redo it and do a new metal, that was like, oh my god, no, there's no way I'm doing that. Just goodbye. Yeah. So that's that whole kind of aspect of dealing with major labels was just a massive turnoff, and I just had to say, again, I'm going to do this myself or something.
That story tells a lot about your integrity as an artist.
Yeah.
It says a lot. Yeah, I mean, just because it's trendy at the moment, that is your legacy. That's, especially when it's one of your first songs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just weird. It's like, I mean, I'm sure the guys at the label, they were, they're all very competent, and they knew what they were doing, and I'm sure it could have been something, but it was, it would have been like, we already had like a very large fan base, and it'd be like, okay, here's London After Midnight going on to this major label, and here's their new album and this song that you've known for all these years. It's like, that's not, to me, I want to present new stuff, so I didn't want to just have that be the new album and the big kind of breakthrough thing of just an old song that at that point I was even tired of singing live, so.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. Okay, so then you decided to go on your own, right?
Yeah, well, I stayed with the smaller German independent label and my U.S. independent label for a few years until that, and then the downloading, the file sharing thing just was really bad, and then those contracts expired, mid 2000s, and it was like, I guess 2007, 2008 was kind of my last dealing with them, and then the contracts kind of phased out, and I was all the time working on new music and playing live and stuff, but I just didn't want to release with any label again, just because of the whole, like I said, they were just getting into wanting digital rights, and before that they were okay with me retaining my digital rights, and they would just handle the physical distribution, but now it's all a combination, and that's all that they will accept is the full package,
Right. I guess at the time that those initial contracts were signed, maybe they didn't have so much interest in something so new.
Yeah.
What is this?
It wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. Digital wasn't like when I. It was like, well, I don't know, later 90s or something when they were signed. So it wasn't so much that there was any kind of real way or I don't even know when iTunes and all that became a thing, but it was relatively small, and they were willing to forego any of those sales. So,
yeah. At a later time, around the 2010s, like you're saying, of course, they're not gonna let go,
right,
of the digital. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so it makes total sense. I think a lot of your fans, I'm sure that they are really glad that you went the way that you did to keep the integrity of your music. And then after that, lately how's your your musical activity? How do you write, produce? How do you do it?
Well, I mainly I just kind of sequence ideas using something like Logic or some kind of digital audio software, and I will basically kind of make a sketch of a song or whatever, and and it may be, if I'm just playing a keyboard, I can come up with an idea, or a guitar, and I don't know, I've always had I always write the music first and then put lyrics later, and it's just, I don't know, it's a normal process. It's not anything special about it, but it could happen anyway, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. In terms of touring, playing live, you mentioned before that's not your preference.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? Do you think that is important if you want to live professionally off of music? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I guess you kind of have to now. I mean, I guess it was always kind of part of it, but with the way the world is now, and with kind of like social media and kind of having to always be in people's faces in order for them to understand that you exist, then you kind of have to tour and do that. Before you could release your music and it would be played on the radio, and you would tour, but then you would go back and then you would write music, and but unless you have a constant online presence of presenting new stuff now, it's kind of, just because people's, I guess, the way they consume stuff and people's mentalities have changed, just because they're bombarded with so much new stuff constantly, and there's so much music out there, and there's so much content just out there on social media and everywhere, that you kind of have to, in order to just keep up, just be out there and be playing.
It's constant effort, almost daily. So
right.
How, you also mentioned, I'm interested in that you're an artist. You paint and sculpt.
Right.
So, how do you reconcile your passions together?
I don't know. Originally, when I was a kid, I would be making like home movies and stuff, and I wanted to do stop motion animation and like Ray Harryhausen or something. And then later on, I wanted to be a film director, and then like my early music preferences were really film scores. That was kind of what got me into music, with film music, and then later classical music, and then I got into more like popular music and post-punk stuff mainly. And so but as like a kid, or even like a teenager, I wasn't that much into, like a really young teenager, I wasn't that much into music with lyrics. I always preferred instrumental kind of stuff. But then I started, and I was playing guitar, and I had played piano. But and then I started playing in bands just to play with other kids, and got more into that, just rock music and that kind of aspect of music generally. But so I don't know, that whole kind of cinematic vibe, or the visual aspect of music always stuck with me, from me wanting to be, somehow involved in film, and always making something, like creatures or sculpting or doing some weird things like that. It always kind of at least kind of plays a role in some aspect of what I create now too. So, and the music I think is kind of could be kind of somewhat theatrical or cinematic in a way, a little bit. So,
yeah. In listening to this song, "Better Off Dead," this could be a great part of a great soundtrack. So,
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, is that something you'd like for your future, perhaps? Like joining that filmmaking or movie industry with soundtracking?
Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to California, I started, my brother does special effects makeup. He worked with like Rick Baker and all the like big special effects artists. And I was able to work on some films as a kid with him, just as on the crew, and but it kind of disillusioned me in the process of making film, just because it's so collaborative. There's so many people involved, and it takes so long. And when I was a really young kid making my own like home movies, I could just do it on a whim. One Saturday afternoon, I could, hey, I'm going to make a movie and do it, and basically have it done by the next day. But so I kind of then I realized that I gravitated more towards something more immediate rather than something that took so long, involved so many people. But so I don't know, maybe I do want to get back into making film, but it would probably be like on a smaller scale of kind of my own weird projects, not maybe in the larger industry, or doing film music or something would be cool too, but we'll see.
Yeah, film music. Yeah, that's that's a passion we share.
Yeah.
So the second thing I love most is cinema, and mixing those is really it's a great combination. Honestly, fantastic outlet for one's music. All right, so yeah, so London After Midnight, wonderful, very very interesting conversation with Sean Brennan. Sean, before we go, if you had an advice for your younger self, what do you think you'd say?
Be even more self-sustaining, or self-sustained, self-contained, because that's kind of the big lesson that I had to go through, was kind of relying on. I've been through like a lot of member changes, and just in the live band, and it's musicians can kind of be a little flaky sometimes. So I'm lucky enough to have worked with, or working with some great ones now. But if you really want to get to be a songwriter, if you really want to construct songs, it's really good to kind of have a broad knowledge of instruments and be able to save that information. Learn some kind of music software or something, so you can get your songs recorded and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I think I would tell myself, is try to do as much as you can yourself, so you don't have to rely on anybody who won't show up to rehearsal or something.
Yeah, so that's something that I tend to hear a lot. Like creators really want to be independent in the sense of like you were saying, self-sufficient.
Right.
Yeah, I totally see that. It's a great advice. All right, so this was very, very insightful. Again, I want to thank you, Sean, for your time.
Yeah.
You know, now we know a little bit better, a little bit more of the person behind the music of London After Midnight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And now we're going to enjoy a little bit more of Better Off Dead. To the next one.
Leerecs live stream online radio is now available on most online radio providers. Search for it and favorite it. Listen to the most interesting and intimate interviews with the artists behind the top true alternative music today at Leerecs.fm. Create your free musician profile, upload your music and create your online store at Leerecs.com. Submit your music for consideration today at Leerecs.com/request and win radio airtime for free.
Of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh. Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.